Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special bonus episode of Cardboard Time. This is Arwen, and I have Jamie with me.
Hey, hi.
Jamie, are you still recovering like I am from Origins?
I think it's safe to say I'm still recovering. It only took, I don't know, 3 days of sleeping for more than 9 hours, which is far more than I normally do.
Yeah, it's now Thursday night. We got home Sunday, and I know that I'm still recovering with a load of emails and trying to catch back up on my actual day job, and then just kind of catching up on general stuff too. It was kind of a wild weekend.
It was fantastic, but holy cow, I haven't been to a con in a really long time. I haven't done things in public in a really long time. And then to do 4 days of nothing but that was, suffice to say, Herculean, but also the most fun I've had in quite a while.
Oh yeah, same. And this, I would say, probably Trump Dragon Con for me. I love Dragon Con. It holds a very special place in my heart, but this was definitely different from the standard Origins, and probably what I told you Origins was going to be like and kind of lured you in. Although I think you're very happy that I did.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I wouldn't trade it for the world at this point. I had so much fun, spent way too much money, met
Same.
some amazing people.
Yeah,
And
we
even got some
we
like some special treatment here and there, which was kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So we made some amazing contacts. I think that because of that, we may have some great things coming up in the near future for everybody listening. And we'll get into those in a minute. But just in case I didn't mention it, this is going to be kind of a raw, uncut podcast. Not that we're going to go and swear a whole bunch or anything, but just
I
the
will.
well, you will. Oh, okay. So that's new. There we go. There's an that I'm not going to cut. Those kinds of things I'm not going to go through and cut just because I'm tired. I just released a podcast for everybody on Tuesday and now it's Thursday night, but I did want to talk about Origins with Jamie. So, speaking of the people that we met, how awesome was everybody at Origins?
I was just blown away. Like, it's one thing to speak highly of the vendors and all the wonderful people we met at the different booths, whether they were selling things or just there to be sources of information. But literally everybody we encountered was just so incredibly like welcoming and kind. And for us, that's a little that has a different connotation, but frankly speaking, I think in general they were all just really awesome people, and it was just really
Yeah.
relieving to like be around humans again, and like nice humans.
Yeah, I guess I just really missed people. I just
I
really
did too.
missed going places and doing things with people.
I think there was a certain part at the con where we were trying to decide if we should go back to the hotel and just play some games, or if we should go back to the convention hall despite the vendor hall being closed and all this other stuff. And we both agreed pretty quickly that like going just to see and be seen was like kind of a priority, which was fun because it was like, yeah, like we used to do that a lot, like before all of this, like going
Yeah.
out to just be out was kind of a thing that happened every now and then.
Yeah, it would led to a interesting encounter with a group of people that I don't know, they have like a boombox or something, and they were like bebopping to some music, and then they just stopped and said, "Who are you gonna call?" And they were just waiting for somebody to reply Ghostbusters.
I nearly forgot about that, to be
And
completely
then
honest with you.
Yeah, then they just went to the next table for some reason. So I have no idea why they were doing it. I just think that they were doing it just to have fun. And I miss those kinds of things, as wacky and wild and nonsensical as they are.
Yeah, I was really excited to be a part of that. I have no idea what it was. It could have been some sort of like arcane summoning ritual. But either way, I was there for it.
Are we gonna summon an elder god because we said Ghostbusters?
Maybe.
Is
You
that
never
what I'm
know.
hearing? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can deal with that, I guess. I mean, that's fine.
Tis the
as long
season.
as long as COVID goes away, then I'm happy. It's a good trade-off.
Those are the deals we need to start thinking about making, as a society.
It's like, look, I'm going to live in the ocean and rule over you, and everything's going to be dark, but COVID's going away. It's like, I might take that. I don't know. As long as stuff like still grows and we can still feed ourselves, I think that would be fine.
I'm just glad you added the caveat that this might be just a little different of an episode because we're both still probably like delirious with fatigue and
Yes, yes.
just, like also the added bonus of us becoming more familiar with one another and therefore like developing inside jokes that are the listeners will definitely not get. And you know what? We're having fun with it, and maybe it doesn't
Exactly.
make sense, but
I think
it's a bonus
I think
episode.
yeah, exactly. What do you want? We're talking to you. Come on.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed this year. I thought that it was quite amazing, and to kind of go down the list of the vendors that we interacted with, the first people that I absolutely have to mention are the people at Chip Theory. Like
Oh,
every
without a
single
doubt.
employee at Chip Theory was so cool and so amazing, especially Andrew. He is a character. I am so happy that we met him. I am so happy that we got a hug at the end from him because I wanted to hug him. And I was like, well, it's COVID and everything. I'm just like, no, this needs to happen.
That's
like-
one of the things that I feel like is most is lost with COVID, and so it was. I totally agree. A very nice kind of capper to the already amazing weekend we had. Just
Yeah. Yeah, okay, and so now we're going to go silence. I'm sorry for interrupting.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I just in general, it was just like you had mentioned, they were all so friendly and like it was such a joy. Like it was already a joy to be there, but it was such a joy to walk into the con and like see familiar faces that were happy to see you and like excited to have you there and spending time around their booth, even if like we had already made our purchases day one. They already sold us, so the fact that like and I know that's not the only reason half of these people are there. Everybody's there because we love games, and it just so happens that there's also their day job. So it was just nice to be a part of that with them, getting to experience that with them, I think.
Yeah, and I think that people really missed other people like we did. That was a big thing. That was the big takeaway that I got from it, where people were just so excited to be around other people and be able to interact and engage and do demos and everything. I've got to tell a story about Chip Theory and Andrew, who was like, seemed very proper in that. And we were actually at a media and publisher event on Thursday night that we got invited to, thanks to Josh Hale, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But fortunately, he reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to help host this event? And I said, yeah, absolutely. and it was so awesome getting to kind of interact on a one-on-one basis with a lot of different publishers who were just there to, show off their games and have a good time and, have a couple of beverages. And Andrew comes up to me and he was looking at my nails and he says, I haven't had my nails painted in a while and I miss that. And, I basically said, what color do you want? And he goes, well, whatever is fine. So I ran over to the little sundry shop called Nielsen's at the base of the convention center and basically picked him up 3 bottles of nail polish. One was a really nice purple and then a glitter coat and a top coat. And his eyes just like lit up like somebody had handed him like a check for $1 million. And it's just those little acts of kindness are the things that I love to do, just to do them. And I think that it really brightened his day. And I think it also made us pretty memorable too, right? But those kinds of things are just the kinds of things I miss about conventions. And you actually have a couple of stories about things that you did for some of the other vendors as well.
Yeah, I had been talking to a lot of vendors over the weekend and kind of hearing their stories about them lamenting not having time to escape their post for very long, because they were some of the only few or in some cases the only person at the booth, so it was all they could do to run away for a little bit to grab a bite to eat or something like that. And one of the most, from a personal standpoint, one of the most exciting things about the convention was that the help me out with the name, the actual name, but it was an organization called Gamers, Gaymers.
Yep.
Is that right? Is that the proper name? Okay.
That was correct.
They were handing out
tabletop gamers.
Tabletop gamers. Yes, that's. I knew I was forgetting something. They were handing out ribbons, which is kind of a con thing that I learned. I did not know about. But they were handing out ribbons that had people's pronouns on them. And so you could just go up and for a donation or just for, the hell of it, you could grab a pronoun ribbon that fit your identity. And we were just super excited, first of all, that was a thing. Just kind of an indication that we weren't going to experience any sort of, friction or anything like that for the most part. And more importantly, the fact that everybody was kind of joining in with aplomb. It wasn't something that people seemed to be very hesitant about. And so inevitably, what that meant was that a lot of these people who were manning these booths really wanted these pins, or not these pins, rather these ribbons, and not being able to escape for very long, couldn't get them. So I approached the booth and I asked them, like, can I take some of these? They let me have some. And I just started going around giving them to the people that we would meet, and kind of giving myself the nickname of the pronoun fairy. So that was my role this weekend. Very fun. And I think, again, it kind of made us stand out a little bit more than we would have, I'm sure. But yeah, it was just like just a very unique, very con-centric experience that we got to have. And it was just a lot of fun. Very memorable and just very, very unique.
Yeah, speaking of memorable and unique, we have to talk about some of the other people that we met at the Mixer. And the next one that I wanted to talk about was Fireside Games.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Anne Marie, who is the co-owner of Fireside Games, really seemed to kind of take a liking to us. And we chatted with them for quite a while. And I had mentioned, first of all, they had Castle Panic Deluxe set up, which looks so amazing. It looks like it's a really cool game, and I'm kind of regretting not getting in on it when it was basically on Kickstarter. I didn't get in. But I do own the original, and I believe that I might be talking about the original in a few episodes because, reasons. I'm not going to spoil it, but I might be talking about that in a couple of episodes.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going somewhere with it, but you didn't want to spoil anything.
Oh,
so
I
guess
went
you
nowhere with it.
Yeah,
I apparently dead-ended into a corner with it.
You know what? This is freeform. This is like improv. Sometimes it just doesn't pan out.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a very poor attempt at a joke. Yeah, no, we had a great time talking with Anne Marie and Justin, and I had never seen Castle Panic before. That was so cool to see because me, I gravitate towards anything that's like RPG light or dice or minis. That was kind of my protocol this weekend. I told Arwen, I said, if it has any of those things, it will probably lure me in like a moth to a flame. So, of course, she was very patient with me and let me kind of wander around like a kind of excited puppy whenever I saw those things. And yeah, I'm glad she did because we got to meet Mindy as well, who was hanging out with Anne Marie and Justin at the Fireside booth, and she was lovely. Getting to see her all weekend was such a blast. And I suppose I guess I can kind of tease it. I don't really think it's like a secret or anything, but they actually did send me home with some minis to paint for them. So I'm really excited to get started on those. I actually have a couple of their STLs to print out first, and then I'm going to get underway with getting some paint on some of those beloved minis that you are so familiar with.
I
will definitely be posting pictures of those on my socials that you are more than welcome to cross-post onto Cardboard Time stuff. So
awesome.
Exciting.
How about the Deepwater folks?
Deepwater was fantastic. They were so much fun to hang out with. And I thought, for whatever reason, we would basically see them at the event and then that would be kind of it. But we kept running into them, not necessarily running into them, but passing by their booth. And every time we did, we would get into a conversation with them. And just like each and every time I just felt like they surprised me more and more with just how, again, not expecting any less than amazing people, because that was just kind of par for the course all weekend. But, I felt like I actually got to know them a little bit more every time we hung out at their booth. And on top of that, we got to play their really fun games. Like Floor Plan, right? Was so much fun.
That one up. Well,
I'm excited to try that one again.
Yeah, I think that one's a nice little simple roll and write that just about anybody can get into and make your own murder house. Mine was definitely covered with trees and stones, so I kind of came up with the backstory that a lot of people died there for whatever reason.
They never said the nature of the stones. They could have all been headstones.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know.
You never know. I don't know why they wanted the stones to surround the tree in the first place. I mean, I think that they were headstones, and it was a nice grave.
Or the tree was, murderous. You never know.
You think that the tree did it?
Oh, it could have been. You've seen the Giving Tree. There's got to be a Taking Tree, right?
That's true. That's very true. The tree giveth, and the tree taketh away. Jalapeno Games was a brand new company that was actually announced that night. Couple of smaller games. One was called Fight Chicken, and that's an import from China. Kind of looking forward to that. It seemed like those really satisfying, simple to pick up, but very strategic games where you're putting tiles together and trying to match everything and then get tokens from what you match. And then you pick up cards when you trade in a certain amount of tokens for points. There's more to it than that, but that's kind of the gist that I got out of the game. And that one I'm pretty pumped about, actually. It's going to be a smaller game, and maybe some people might pass by it, but I definitely want to, get a copy of that and play it.
I didn't get a chance to demo it, but it looked really fun, like a little tile laying game, which is always really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other game that they had there was Letter Better, which I had found on the Game Crafter, but apparently Jalapeno Games, and that's Jalapena, Pina as in Pina Colada, picked this one up, and Ryan, who's the head of Jalapeno, basically asked us, hey, what do you think of this box art? I really loved it. It had that kind of retro style that you might find in a toy shop in the 60s or 70s. It's kind of hard to describe without actually seeing it, but if you look up Letter Better, you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, I thought they were really onto something with that. I think you're totally right when you said it's reminiscent of the 60s and 70s. I think the red and black aesthetic too is really nice. It just kind of draws you in. And one thing I pointed out, and I think the designer was a little bit surprised, but I mean, to me that speaks to good design. And I'll stop burying the lead, but the vowels were red and the consonants were black, which led me to think, oh, I bet that means that like there's something unique about that in the game. And he's like, oh, have you played it before? And I was like, no, I'm just kind of like intuited based on the design. So clearly, they did something right with that intuition that they had for that design.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was a really good pickup. I was super impressed with that. I'm like, yeah, man, that's really, really good. I couldn't believe that. We have to talk about the people at the GUI Cube booth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because every single time that we passed by, it was like a conversation then ensued.
I wanted to specifically shout out Elle and Riley, who were the two lovely booth tenders there. Two people who so graciously accepted my pronoun ribbons. In fact, they requested them. They were kind of the ones that kicked that, got that ball rolling to mix a couple of metaphors that I wasn't certain which one I would land on. Yeah, they kind of gave me that original idea. Maybe not directly, but they definitely inspired it. So that was nice to have that kicked off. But like you said, the best part was just, getting to interact with them every time she called us over and wanted to give us her pitch. And we just kind of were like, oh yeah, no, we have plenty of people here tomorrow that will want to hear more about this. And then I ended up buying the product that she was selling, which I was not, like it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for me. But like after talking with her about it and getting to understand the concept behind the D&D 5e module that they create, that's kind of a plug and play. It's very little set up for the DM. It's really kind of a great way for somebody to learn how to DM or to play 5e. They were both fantastic people, and it was a fantastic product. So it was really fun to, again, one of the things, the themes that we kept coming back to was it feels really good to support good people who make a good product. And that was more or less what we did with every purchase we had there.
Yeah, and, when I went in and looked at it, I'm not a huge D&D player at the moment. I've dabbled in it before in the past, but Allie, my girlfriend, is huge into D&D, and this was like right up her alley. Her eyes lit up, and she's like, you are a terrible influence on me. This is really bad, because we basically entered the convention into the dealer hall, we walked past Arcane Wonders, and they were right behind them. So it was like the second booth that Allie saw, after this company that's producing this game that, looks incredibly dry. But I can't wait to play. I can't wait to play Furnace. It looks so good. And then you have this magnificent booth that has all these great landscapes and artwork in GUI Cube. And I think that their booth was super attractive, but B, they were so awesome and such great people. They just kind of drew you in and made an impression for sure.
Oh, big time. And it was nice to get to know these people, and then also we all more or less ended up following each other on socials too. So it was like we got to keep up with each other throughout the whole con, which was like kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was a pretty unique experience to get to see their side of things too, because that inevitably occurred. You would get to see these dealers and the things that they were doing after hours, and like maybe not everybody's privy to those things, but it was just kind of another unique experience that I thought was really fun.
Yeah, it was so amazing because I've never left a Origins where I've thought I have to say goodbye to this person and this person and this person and this person and this person. And you really felt that, and again, I think our situation was unique from, I know what I experienced in 2019 as basically a regular attendee, and now in more of a media capacity, which I was kind of going there to do, but not like as much as I actually wound up doing there. I think that it was really a very unique kind of peek behind the curtain to see how everything operated. And you're right. Yep. I mean, you got to see, hey, we're going to this bar afterwards. This is what we're doing tonight. We're going off and playing this tonight, that kind of thing. So
we were kind of hitting them with the 1-2 punch, because that was not only my first Origins, but also, I was there as a retail partner. And, so it was kind of a nice, like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but also we're here to rep your games. And like, I like to think that they didn't treat us differently because of those things. Half the time what happened was we'd show up, we'd get to know them really well, and then they'd ask us and we'd go, oh, we're here under this capacity. And it was just like, oh, great. Well, we're already really amazing people talking to you and treating you very special because you're someone who loves games just like me. And like,
yes,
it was kind of nice because our impetus for being there never predated their treatment of us, which was amazing.
Exactly, which I think goes to show how amazing they were.
I tweeted out earlier that like there was just something about that whole experience, and we've been gushing about it enough that it's pretty obvious now, but there was just something about that whole experience that that provided me a lot of optimism that I think I've been missing for a while. And leave it to people who play board games to like somehow find a way to like min-max optimism.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we actually did, those people we didn't even have meetings set up with, and then we just kind of met up with them, and that was that. It just kind of formed naturally, whether it was from the mixer or just kind of going around and doing a little tour of the vendor hall and just getting into conversations. But we had some really great discussions with CGE. Ray and Tony there were amazing. Thunderworks, Tim Vertig, Rock Manor, and XYZ also were just, every single meeting was so nice. It was just, how can we partner with you? you know, and it just felt like, yes, we need our games promoted, but how can we partner with you to help you get where you need to go as well?
It
Which
did
I thought
seem
was
very
great.
symbiotic in every situation. It wasn't this. It wasn't like, how can we give you copies of our games to review? It was right off the bat. It was, how can we help you first? It was just it. There was just something real special about that. Like
Yeah.
being, again, not necessarily treated with any sort of, it wasn't preferential treatment, but it was just very nice that it was always led with this, like, this very trusting, very open and honest, like, act of goodwill. It was, as you were saying the whole weekend, it's people helping people. And that's what
Yeah.
it came down to, So it was just nice to see that attitude extrapolated on in a very real way.
Yeah, and then got to see Dan Kazmaier from Steeped Games as well. We had a nice little chat. And finally, I want to talk about IV Studios. And we played Mythic Mischief, that you had actually backed and you hadn't had the opportunity to play. You had just backed it. And I think that I might be in the same camp after this.
I'm a big sucker for well marketed games, and to say this game is well marketed would be the understatement of the century. Okay, maybe that's a little hyperbolic, but, like, genuinely, it would be such a huge understatement to say that this game is well marketed. It is spectacularly marketed, and I think they really drove it home with what I guess I'll call their set that they had at the con. You probably would be better at describing the whole thing than me, but
Yeah.
that it was fantastic.
It was amazing. So they've produced a few games in the past. One was Moonrakers. The second that they were actually featuring was Alter Fates, I believe. And then the third was Mythic Mischief. And see, I actually said it properly this time. It's amazing.
You did it.
I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. I loved the setup of this game because they basically set everything up where you had two tables where you played at, and they're very nice. I don't think they were Wormwood, but they were of the ilk. Basically that very, very nice feeling table. And especially with Mythic Mischief, they had a divider because it's primarily a two-player game. So you had 4 seats, and they basically had a divider made up of, like, spell books and these differently colored potions. And of course, you had hand sanitizer kind of mixed in there because that's another
The most important potion.
it is super important that weekend. And it was just such a beautiful set design. And then they had the box, obviously, so that people walking by could see exactly what people were playing. And I took a picture. Go to my Instagram, cardboard_time. There's my plug. To take a look at it. But I recently posted, it was actually tonight, October 7th. You can see just how amazing this set design is, and it made for an outstanding picture. So they were extremely smart in doing that because you knew people wanted to take pictures, and then they're going to post them, and then they're going to talk about the game.
It added to the experience too, because the whole crux of the game is you are one of multiple mythical monsters at a mythical high school, and you are moving around through the library trying to stymie one another in your movement through this library, in which there is a tome keeper who's trying to methodically move from place to place and catch you or your I guess your rivals. It's just a really very cutely made game, and it was just the setup was just totally in line with the theming that they had for it. It just made the whole thing just like so immersive in a way. I don't know, that maybe seems a little silly, but I had a lot of fun with it. It made me feel good about backing it, which is good.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't just me getting suckered into flashy marketing. It's nice to know that there's a good game behind all that.
No, and Ellie actually leaned over to me as we were playing, and she was going up against you, and Rachel, your wife, was going up against me, and then Ellie leaned over because she was sitting next to me, and she goes, "I really like this game."
And they're two of the harshest critics of games, not insofar as they're like really withering about their opinions about them, but it's hard to rope them into games sometimes. So the fact that they both had such a glowing review is really positive.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking I have to get in on this because the pledge manager is only open until the 20th, I think. So I better get on the website and do that.
Yeah, it's definitely not one to sleep on.
So I think all of these stories kind of culminate into a point that I wanted to make. And, you know, I think that we saw very, very well over the weekend that there are people behind the games that we play. And that's one thing that I've looked to kind of tell on the podcast. But I think I really have to double down on trying to tell more stories from around the gaming world. It's really easy to lose sight of that, you know, you think that there's this big corporation that's putting out this game and, you know, they're making all this money off of it and everything. But really, there's usually a very small team. It's smaller than you think. It may be a couple of people. And they're just kind of making things happen. And I think we have to be conscious of that as we go and not only buy games, but interact with those people online as well.
Yeah, I think the best example of this is you mentioned Dan Kazmaier earlier with the game Chai, and I think it's especially acute for things like Kickstarters. Because I think people forget that Kickstarter is just kind of a platform for people to try to produce a game on a pretty, you know, like difficult budget, functionally speaking. And, you know, so a lot of times people will forget that there are human beings behind these games and that like these withering, you know, approaches to trying to express your discontent, like it's important to do those things. Like it's important to give feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, because it helps companies grow. It helps them kind of identify pratfalls that they want to avoid in the future. But the reality of it is that like it can be really devastating to somebody who is relying on, you know, whether it's emotional momentum or literal business momentum to get something that they've had this intimate relationship with out to people who love games like us. You know, like I don't know. It's just important to remember that, as you said, I basically just said exactly what you said, but a lot more laborious and lengthy, which is kind of my thing.
I get that way too, girl. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
But one thing, and I don't know, we never talked about this. It sort of became my catchphrase, or rather like my my really succinct way of describing what I feel like we touched on in a big way this weekend, and I feel like a direction that the podcast will continue to go. I kept calling it like it's kind of like the NPR Tiny Desk concerts of podcasts, board gaming podcasts specifically, because you get this really intimate view of something that you're already familiar with. Like your chances are you're already a fan, or you wouldn't be searching it up. But also like a kind of a peek into the personality and like the emotion behind everything.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that assessment. That's a really, really good way of describing it. speaking of people, I was, and you've already talked about this a little bit, Jamie, but there was such great LGBTQ plus representation at this convention. It was amazing to see. And I actually also have a story about that. I almost canceled out on going to Origins 2020, just due to the fact that I didn't know how I'd be treated. It was in the very early stages of my coming out. It was originally supposed to be in June, as it usually is every single year. And the year before, I think it was the same. It was the tabletop gamers that were handing out the pronoun ribbons, and people were, making fun of them and saying, well, why do we need that? And why do you need to announce that you're gay? And I think that we've come a long way in 2 years. I don't know if it's the environment that the Origins leadership is trying to set. But I certainly, I felt like I needed to go. And it was an important part of my journey because at some point I have to go to a game convention. I mean, there's no stopping it. If I'm going to be a podcaster, I need to go to a gaming convention, and reality's reality. I'm going to be treated however I am. And I always felt like I had a place. I always felt like I was welcome. And I felt like I was at home during this convention. And it was really amazing to see.
One of the things we noticed too was that a lot of these games. I apologize for the train in the background.
Yeah. Whoops.
I tried to mute myself so that it wouldn't keep going during your portion there. One of the things we kept noticing was that there's a lot of really great representation in these games, and it's not shoehorned in. It's very natural. It's very organic in the ways that they introduce these things to games. A good example is, like, I believe it was Fireside who demonstrated that the art style that they chose featured people of color, people of different ethnicities, and the conversation around it was like, as I put, like, okay, so you can believe in fantasy and magic and everything like that, but a person of color being like a fantasy character is just beyond the pale for you. But the reality of it is, it never felt unearned, and that was very much demonstrated in the way that we interacted with these people. And that's why I think it resounds so effectively from a from not necessarily a marketing standpoint, but from a game design standpoint, right? The people behind it earn their position to claim diversity because they adopt it. One thing I think you and I have talked about before is that weird vibe you get when you feel like somebody has just memorized your pronouns as opposed to like truly adopting them. And yes. I think that's a similar notion to when somebody puts diversity into something but doesn't actually adopt the ideology behind including that. And I think that's what makes the concept really ring hollow for a lot of people, and it kind of destroys the notion surrounding it. So it rings very hollow for people who are just observing, and it's not as important to. It just kind of destroys the momentum of the whole movement. So for us, not only going to this place and just being treated like every other person there, seeing the games that also had representation in them, it just all kind of clicked together as this kind of reality where it's like, oh, this is a space where we don't have to worry about that for once, and that was just like so exciting, but also really normal in like a really important way,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it just felt normal. I felt like I was a normal part of this group and society where there's places I go and, I don't know, is it because I'm a 6'5" woman or is it because I'm trans, but you're kind of staring at me. And this was just like, yeah, okay, well, you are who you are. Anyways, here's this game. We love it. We think it's really cool. We'd love you to play it. And I was just blown away because it was just accepted and it was normal. And I am so happy to, be in a group that I kind of feel that way.
And to be completely honest, a group that deserves that, like a group that really wears it as a badge of honor to be inclusive, but not braggadocious about it. It's just sort of nice. It's like I said, I don't know how much more I can say about it. It really just felt normal, and that is so unfortunately rare.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak to, BIPOC matters, but I know that from my kind of corner of the representation pie, I certainly felt welcome at the table.
That's a very good point to bring up, and one aspect in which our experience is limited. So do take our perspective from simply the LGBT, specifically a trans perspective.
Exactly. My little tiny slice of the pie.
Right. Limited though it is, very important nonetheless.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this up with a question, and I'm going to let you go first, but I'm pretty sure that I already know what the answer is going to be, and I have to ask what your game of the convention was.
That is a really good question. I felt like it changed with every game we played. And one dark secret that you learned about me over the weekend is that I hate making decisions. So this is like my kryptonite. I would say, oh man, I really enjoyed Mythic Mischief. I thought that was probably my favorite game that I played all weekend.
I thought you would have put that at number 2, but okay.
I really liked Too Many Bones, but I feel like I need to dive into that a lot deeper. And I specifically didn't pick the one that I know you're going to choose because I wanted you to have an opportunity to talk about it. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, I loved Mythic Mischief. Again, I thought that was amazing. I'm looking forward to the Spill as well. I got to see that kind of in action, and that's one that I'm probably going to pick up. Too Many Bones, I've already played 2 solo games of it, and I've only had it for a few days, but it's such a cool game. It's amazing. You get to chuck like 8 million dice, and it's just satisfying. It's fun. All the different characters play differently. It just, yeah, there will be a review on it eventually, but it's just good. It ain't going anywhere, folks. But the one that really stood out for me was Stonewall Uprising. And I'm sure part of it is because I'm biased towards the theme, but I think even the theme aside, the mechanics were amazing. It's essentially a deck builder that you're trying to push 3 tracks one way or another. It's kind of like a tug of war. It's produced by Catastrophe Games, and we actually were in contact with the creator of it before the convention on Twitter. And I said, I need to play this game if you're going to be there. And he sat down, taught us, and it's incredible. The gist of it is basically the Pride movement playing against the man in a 2-player asymmetric deck builder, where each player has their own market that they're working on. The way that you get cards is really unique, and we will be discussing this in the future. I've been in contact with Taylor, and he has agreed to be on the show. Once we kind of get closer to launch. So he said that he would love to do that, and we need to have him on because this game, the amount of work and care that he put into his research is astounding. The way that he implemented historical events into the game and had them work out thematically is incredible. And it's almost an emotional experience in a way.
I think it was, again, going back to the feeling of like having earned something. This is kind of the pinnacle of that thought process. He spent a ton of time doing research, as you mentioned, and just like doing his homework on all this stuff, and it really shows in the game. Not only that, but to touch on what you mentioned before, there are a ton of mechanics, but it never feels unwieldy. It's very well crafted in that way. And to finally agree with your statement on emotion, there was a point at which, so to give some context, basically you're playing through 3 different decades, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the cards change as you go through. But there are certain cards that remain the same, including members of the Pride movement that may have had short lifespans, but the way that that Taylor kind of translated that into kind of justifying its perseverance in the game is that just like in the Pride movement, people still evoke these names and their ideologies to continue the fight today. They also echo through those decades and still do to this day. And Arwen and I were sitting there when he was saying that, and I think we were both getting a little misty-eyed. It was just kind of like, this guy not only loves this game, but like, holy crap, like that was when I knew it was the real deal. I'm like, he's done a lot of work on this. Like, it was kind of awe-inspiring at that point to genuinely not be hyperbolic in any way. Like I knew something was like seriously good. There was something going on there, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that kind of emotional response to a board game in my entire life. Like there's the awe that you get from certain games in the magnitude and grandiosity of them and how well they play. Or there's like in Star Wars Rebellion where, this is Star Wars in a box and, oh, this is really cool. This was much more of a emotional journey that you get taken on. And I think it's something that could be used as a learning tool as much as it is a game.
I absolutely agree. I could see this being, like integral to somebody's understanding of the movement. And there were things that I thought, I was pretty well versed on, and there were things that I even learned, or even just like little tidbits about certain people that I picked up from playing this game. It's just, I can't say enough good about this game. I'm really excited to see how it develops and, hopefully the notoriety that it gains.
I'm hoping so. I'm kind of, I want to make sure that it doesn't get kind of pushed to the back corner. So that's one reason that we want to have Taylor on, is to make sure that there's some light shined on it, because I think it's going to be a game that should not be overlooked. Coming out next year. So this was a prototype that we did play. It is still in progress. They're looking at a release at some point next year. I'm not sure I can exactly say when, but look for it next year is all I can say. and we will have Taylor on, basically once that release date gets closer and closer. So, all right, Jamie. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us. Any final thoughts on Origins 2021?
Yeah, I'm really glad that it was in September of this year, because that means that Origins 2022 in June is that much closer. I don't have to wait a full 365 days to get my fill of this again. And honestly, I know we talked about it kind of non-committally, but I am very interested in maybe doing PAX Unplugged if you are.
Well, we may have to bring that offline because there might be
I think you created a monster.
Yeah, there might be a possibility about that. We'll see. Let us know what you think about that. All right, I think that's going to do it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this Origins 2021 bonus episode. I am so happy that we were able to talk about our experience, and we will see you in episode number 26.
Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, anytime, Jamie. Have a good night.
You too.